Hello friends, this is Vaman Gokhale. Welcomes you to this e-learning lesson on Law of Limitation 1963 and the intricacies to be followed so far as loan documentation of the bank is concerned. Our objectives are to understand the law of limitation governing the loans, limitation period for various agreements, the method of computing the limitation period, how the limitation period can be extended, the method of revival of limitation period in respect of some of the time bar documents, and some of the situations which we will be facing when we will be working in the loans department. Law of Limitation 1963. The word limitation is defined as restraint, restriction, or is a limiting rule. The essential purpose of limitation period is to place a time limit on the period within which parties to it can commence legal proceedings. Just imagine a case that your late grandpa had a will, a loan of rupees 10,000 in 1964, and now after say 56 years the bank is asking you to repay that loan. Such a situation may arise, and that is why the Limitation Act 1963 is essential. It is the time limit within which the parties to the agreement can take action in the court of law to enforce their rights. Once the period of limitation is elapsed or over, any right to seek relief from the court is extinguished. In India, the statute was enacted in 1859 and subsequently modified in 1963 as Limitation Act 1963. It is a central legislation, and limitation period as prescribed is uniform in all states. It means that whatever limitation is there in respect of this law, it is same in respect of all the states. It is also now applicable to the state of J&K with effect from 28th of February 2020. The limitation period cannot be shortened or extended by mutual agreement. That is, in respect of this period, no one can enter into a special agreement so that the limitation period will be shortened or it can be extended beyond the prescribed limit. It will be ultra virus. This legislation is founded on the premise, the two premise on which this legislation is there, is that there is a definite end to all the living beings, and hence to protect the public interest, there should be a specified limit for every agreement. Secondly, the law protects only those who are vigilant towards their own rights. The Act contains 32 sections and 137 articles. The sections, they deal with the principle of law of limitation, whereas the articles prescribes the limitation period for each of the uh, aspect. On crossing the limitation period, the remedy for recovery of debt by filing suit comes to an end. However, the right of recovery remains intact. That is, there is a what is called as a statute bar, so far as going to the court and getting the justice is there. However, the remedy always remains with the parties. It provides, this law provides different limitation periods for different types of suits. Limitation period is dealt with entry 13 list 3 of Constitution of India, and it applies to right of action in future. So far as bank loans are concerned, after sanctioning the loan, before disbursement, we obtain various loan documents. These documents are de facto the agreements and contracts between us and our borrower. If the borrower fails to comply with the contract or agreement, we can file the suit in the court of law for its enforcement, such as for seeking repayment if the loan is an NPA or if the loan is not easily recoverable. For that purpose, remember that our documents must be enforceable so that we can recover by selling the securities or encashing the securities. But the most important aspect is that the documents should be within the limitation period. Please study this section 3 of Limitation Act 1963. What it says, please, the plea of limitation, the plea of limitation is the duty of the court. That is, if any suit, application, or an appeal beyond the limitation is filed, it should be dismissed. Such is the importance of our documents and the limitation period, and therefore we must understand these aspects, and hence kindly study the table given below. Here you will find that the table is of 4 columns. Column number 2 gives number of the article. Column number 3 gives the type of document on which suit is based or the description of the suit, and the last column gives the period of validity, means how many years that particular document or that particular action is valid. First and foremost is the suits which are based on demand promissory note. This is very common type of document which we obtain in almost all the cases. A banker obtains the DP note. It means the loan is repayable on demand which is raised by the bank. They are obtained in respect of demand loans against FDs, OD against FD, NSC, etc. Similarly, we obtain it for running accounts like cash credit and overdrafts. In respect of DP notes, some of the institutions obtain this DP note for all types of facilities. Now take an example to understand the efficacy of this thing. You will find that in this presentation, a DP note is given. It is said to be executed on 4/7/2020, and the validity period being 3 years from the execution, it will be valid up to 4/7/2023. So far as these notes are concerned, sometimes it may so happen that borrowers, they are signing these DP notes or executing these DP notes on different dates. In respect of such cases, it is deemed to be complete, that is, execution is deemed to be complete when the last signatory subscribes his signature, and the limitation will begin from that particular date. Now we will come to serial number 2, that is credit facilities where agreements are executed and amounts are repayable on demand. In respect of accounts like cash credit accounts, the overdraft accounts, the running accounts, we always obtain this type of agreement wherein the amount is repayable on demand by the bank. In fact, most of these loans are given for uh, current assets, that is for acquisition of the current assets. And the condition always is that the client should deposit the sale proceeds regularly in the account, and then he can draw from this account also. This particular agreement is also valid for 3 years from the date of document. Naturally, if there are more than one executants, signatories, then when the last signatory signs the document, it will become effective and the 3 years be counted from this particular date. Now, friends, let us come to serial number 3. Here, the credit facilities where agreements are executed and the amounts are payable in installments. That is, amount is not payable on demand, but it is payable in future. Bankers sanction credit facilities for investment purposes such as land and building, plant and machinery, furniture and fixture, that is term loans or housing loans or vehicle loans. All these loans, they are repayable after certain period. Mostly they are repayable in equal installments, EMI or EQI, or as per agreed terms. In respect of this, always remember that the first installment will become due after completion of the moratorium period. Suppose that in one of the cases, let us see the case in respect of a term loan agreement, it was executed on 4/7/2020. The loan was repayable in 60 installments, EMIs, including a moratorium period of 6 months, and hence in respect of first installment it will be due on 4/1/2021, means after completion of the 6 months period. Naturally, the repayment is by EMI. As such, the second installment will be due for 4/2/21. In respect of first installment, the period of validity will be 3 years from the due date, that is 3 years from 4/1/21. As such, it will be 4/1/24. In respect of the second installment, the due date of repayment, that is limitation, will be 4/2/2024. Like that, for every installment, the limitation period will be different. It may so happen that few installments are time barred, but for rest of the installments, the document is within limitation period. This is the difference between the second, that is agreement, wherein repayment is in demand, and here where it is to be repaid in installments. Now, let us go to point number 4, temporary overdraft as per ledger. Here also 3 years from the date of debit in the account. Bankers sanction TOD by honoring the checks, instruments drawn on the current assets or even in the saving accounts, thereby resulting OD in the account. It may be based on the mutual trust or a special facility or an occasional one. The banker may not have obtained any document in such case. The limitation will be 3 years from the date of debit in the account. If the facility is sanctioned TOD limit, then we always obtain a DP note, agreement of OD, etc. And the limitation period is will be as discussed above in the point number 1 and 2. Let us now discuss about the bills of exchange and a promissory note and the period of validity of these. Now, understand what is a bill of exchange. It is an instrument having or containing an unconditional order to pay, whereas in respect of promissory note, they are also instruments in writing, but it is an unconditional undertaking or a promise to pay. With this basic, let us understand different types of bills and their due dates, etc. Now, bill of exchange. So far as bill of exchange is concerned or a promissory note is concerned, at sight and on presentation means on demand. Secondly, after sight means after presentation for sight. That is, after acceptance or noting for non-acceptance or protest for non-acceptance. So after sight bills or after sight bills or promissory notes, they are to be presented and accepted. When accepted, or they can be rejected also, means if they are rejected, in that case noting is to be undertaken, particularly in respect of foreign bills, and further the protest also is to be noted in respect of foreign bills, so far as the promissory notes or bills of exchange are concerned. Usance promissory note are promissory notes which are payable after fixed time, that is usance. In usance promissory note and bill of exchange under section 22 of NI Act, while working out the due date, 3 days of grace are added after the day on which it is expressed to be payable. For example, if there is a bill of exchange or a promissory note dated 21/6/2020, it is payable 1 month after sight. Now, this is payable 1 month after sight, hence it will be first presented for payment. Now, this was presented on 26/6/20 and the bill or the P note was accepted on 27/6/20. Naturally, it will be due after 1 month plus 3 days of grace, that is, it will be due on 30/7/2020. Like that, the different due dates are worked out. Remember that so far as demand bills are concerned, they are payable as soon as they are presented. Now let us go back and let us see what is the limitation period in respect of different types of bills. Article 31, on a bill of exchange or a promissory note payable at a fixed time after date. It is payable at a fixed time after date, 3 years when the bill or note falls due. So presentation of bill is the cause of action. Secondly, the bill of exchange payable at sight or after sight, but not at a fixed time. This is the time from bill is presented or accepted. So 3 years when the bill is presented. Presentation, acceptance of bill is the cause of action. So cause of action will begin, or rather limitation period will begin from that particular date. On a bill of exchange, accepted, payable at a particular place. If it is payable at a particular place, remember, then again it is 3 years when the bill is presented at that place. When it is presented at that place, it will be available, that is limitation will be available for up to 3 years. on a bill of exchange or promissory note payable at a fixed time after sight or after demand. 3 years when the fixed time expires. In short, in almost when there is an action, when there is a cause of action, 3 years from the cause of action in respect of bills, that is the common aspect so far as bills are concerned. Now let us discuss the loans which are secured by mortgages. This is covered by Article 62. Under this article, if the money is payable on demand, this is the first case. The loans which are coming under this type of facility, they are the cash credit loans, overdraft loans, demand loans, etc. Here the limitation period is 12 years from the date of the mortgage. The mortgage may be equitable or it may be registered mortgage from that date 12 years. Second is if the amount is payable by installment, that is the type of loans are housing loans, term loans, business loans against mortgage, then agriculture development loan, etc. Thus, here the amount is repayable as per agreed installments. And in respect of this type of mortgage, the limitation period is 12 years from the date when the default is made. So for each installment, there will be different due dates or limitation date in respect of the such type of mortgage which covers the term loans. The third aspect in respect of mortgage, that is a person has given his immovable property as mortgage and therefore and he is personally liable on the mortgage. So his liability is the personal liability. Now understand what is a personal liability. Personal liability definitely means if the mortgage is encashed, means if the property is sold and the amount is not sufficient to cover the outstanding loan which is given through a personal liability and a mortgage, then his personal assets are liable. Similarly, the person is liable means the person can be put behind the bars. In such circumstances, that is, in case of personal liability, the limitation is 3 years from the date of demand on the guarantor. So when the demand is made on this person, then only the time of limitation starts ticking and it is 3 years. Then comes against the guarantors, that is limitation period when a guarantee bond or guarantee agreement is signed. Here there may or may not be a mortgage by that particular person, but they have only stood as a guarantor. In respect of that, 3 years from the date of service of notice on guarantors means no service of notice is made. Then in respect of such cases, the limitation period will not start ticking at all. Giving of notice means recalling the advance, and hence it may so happen that the documents may get time barred against the borrower, but they may be valid against the guarantor. Next comes the mortgage suits. In respect of this, it is about the execution of the decree. It is about the execution of the decree. So far as mortgage is concerned, a mortgage has to be proved in the court and a decree is to be obtained for selling the property. The limitation is about this execution of such a decree. the period of validity limitation is 12 years from the date of the decree. Now comes the two important aspects which are again related with the mortgages. This is the right of foreclosure of property by a mortgagee. The right of foreclosure. Foreclosure means the right with the lender under the Transfer of Property Act, Section 67, to obtain a decree and sell the property. The mortgagee cannot redeem or get back that property. Foreclosure is here the it is a right available with the lender to sell the property, and this right he is can get it. For that particular right, the limitation is 30 years when the money secured by the mortgage becomes due. So for the foreclosure, the limitation period is very huge, 30 years when the money secured by the mortgage becomes due. So within 30 years he must file the suit. Next is right of redemption in case of mortgage. Again, the suit of redemption means the right of a debtor. It is a right of a debtor to get back the property after paying all dues. So his right of the owner, or right of the owner of the property is there. It remains like that. To get back the property, the limitation period is 12 years when the right to recover accrues. Then under Article 116, again under this article, uh, the Civil Procedure Code for filing an appeal for decree or order. This is in respect of filing of decree or order. If the decree is to be or order, an appeal is to be filed in the High Court, then the period is 90 days from the day of decree or order. In respect of any other court, means other than High Court, this period is 30 days from the date of decree or order. The deposit accounts, in respect of deposit accounts like saving bank, current account, and the matured FDs, remember, the limitation period is 3 years, means if a banker doesn't pay the amount, the limitation period available with our customer is 3 years from the date of demand in respect of all these type of deposits. So this benefit is available with our depositors. With this, we are concluding the table. However, we will look into the details of the other aspects. We have seen through three different tables the limitation period for various agreements, various contracts, say a DP note, a demand promissory note, agreements of term loan, agreements for cash credit loans, mortgages, similarly different types of suits, and various the decrees and a time period within which it is to be filed, etc. Now imagine the case. Suppose the last date of that limitation is 15th of August. What will happen? And those are the things, that is, those are the instances which are excluded while calculation of limitation. So let us see what the Act says about such circumstances. First is closure of the course, like 15th of August, what I told you. Under Section 4, it says that if the prescribed period for any suit, that is a suit is there or an appeal is there, it expires, last day is 15th August, on a day, on that day the courts are closed, the suit or appeal may be filed on the day when the court opens. The last example, 15th August. Suppose 16th is a Sunday, the court is closed. In that case, if court opens on 17th, then the limitation will be the 17th of August. Second aspect in this, the court jurisdiction under section 14. It may so happen that in respect of certain suits, the we have approached a wrong court, and this is has happened inadvertently, and we have prosecuted our our case, that is we have defended our case in good faith. The time spent in such proceedings is also eliminated or is not considered a part of limitation. Suppose we have filed a court in a wrong court, and because of that 15 days have elapsed, and therefore these 15 days will be condoned under this particular section. Then injunction, the cause of action is restrained, means we have to file the suit, but we were restrained by the defendant, by our say borrower, through the court, the higher court say, to not to file a suit for another 3 months in that particular case, because we are restrained, that is, there is an injunction order, and therefore for the limitation period will be extended by say 3 months, because there was an injunction for 3 months. Then the time during which the defendant has gone abroad can be excluded. For example, if our limitation, our DP note, it expires on say 14th of July, and the concerned person against whom we have to file the suit is away in USA for say 3 months, then these 3 months will be condoned, and limitation will increase, or limitation will go further by this particular period. Under section 12, the first day of cause of action can be excluded in computing the limitation. Now for working the limitation itself, the first day is excluded. For example, say suit based on a DP note. The DP note is dated 12/7/2018. In that particular case, the suit can be filed on the anniversary day, that is 12/7/21. That is 3 years. It is valid for 3 years, and 3 years will expire on 12/7. So suit can be filed in such cases on 12/7/21. So while calculating the limitation period, these periods are excluded. We have seen that certain period can be excluded while counting the limitation. The present period, because of COVID-19 pandemic, is an exceptional period, and it is impossible for the people to attend the courts, to go to the courts, because of social distancing and other aspects. In view of this, the Supreme Court took a suo motu cognizance of the difficulties faced by the litigants due to lockdown, and passed an order pertaining to the law of limitation as a relief measure. Let us see what is included in that particular order. The Supreme Court, under Article 142, read with Article 141, these are the articles of Constitution of India, and under these articles declared, Supreme Court declared extension of limitation for all tribunals across the country, including the Supreme Court, from 15th March 2020 till an order to this effect is passed. So in a way, this is a stay order in respect of limitation, we can say. The extension of this limitation period shall be irrespective of the limitation prescribed under the general law or special law, whether condonable or not. Means this order supersedes the other things. The impact is that the limitation period of all the petitions, all the applications, suits, appeals, other proceedings under the general law of limitation or under special laws, both central and or state, shall be extended indefinitely from 15th March 2020 till an order to this effect is passed. So far, we have elaborately discussed limitation period in respect of various documents such as DP note, agreements like cash credit, overdraft, term loan, etc., limitation period for bills, and limitation period for taking legal action in respect of suit filing, as well as limitation for execution of decrees, etc. We had studied the period which is to be excluded while computing the limitation. So also we have seen how the suo motu action in March 2020 by Supreme Court has extended the limitation till further orders. The question is always asked whether the limitation period can be saved or extended, and the answer is yes, it can. There are two methods through which this is possible. Method number one is by obtaining acknowledgement of debt from the borrower and guarantors, of course, before expiry of limitation. And secondly, by deposit of money by the borrower or by his agent. Of course, these two conditions, again I am repeating, should be carried out during the limitation period. So by acknowledgement and or by deposit of part payment in the account, these two events, they will extend the limitation period. Now let me elaborate one by one. In respect of acknowledgement of debt, bankers and financial institutions, they have standard formats for acknowledgement of debt from borrowers and guarantors for exceeding the limitation period. In some banks, they call it as revival letters. In others, they call it link letter. For example, in Bank of Maharashtra, they call it B2G2 form. This particular letter or acknowledgement, which is a standard form, it embodies various details. Like first is the last set of documents executed, like DP note, agreement of hypothecation, term loan agreements, etc. Secondly, it states the subsisting liability, that is, what is the present debit balance that is due to the debtor. Thirdly, the securities which are charged to the bank. This type of document or this type of acknowledgement is obtained by the bankers half yearly or every 3 years as per extant guidelines of each and every bank. This acknowledgement results extension of limitation period by further 3 years from the date of execution of such acknowledgement. If debit balance confirmation is obtained, it attracts stamp duty. Remember, my friends, this acknowledgement is very important as it gives us opportunity to meet our borrowers and the guarantors, whereby we will be knowing what is their present status and definitely will help in recovering our dues. Now, not only these, friends, always a banker and his borrower, there are different sets of letters which are exchanged between these two, and the correspondence between the banker and the borrower has been accepted as acknowledgement of debt by several courts. Albeit, such letters should contain an admission of liability and should seek time for payments. Letters in respect of, say, refacement of loans, OTS, waiver of interest, etc., wherein more time is sought and debit balance confirmed have been accepted by the courts as acknowledgement of debt. Even, even what to talk about these letters, even an email directly addressed to the banker from the borrower and the guarantors accepting the liability is treated as acknowledgement of debt. Remember, an ambiguous letter or denial of liability may not be accepted as evidence. The courts have accepted the financial statements filed by the competent authorities, filed with the competent authorities like registrar of cooperative societies, registrar of companies as an acknowledgement of debt. So financial statements themselves, which are deposited or which are filed with the authorities, they are treated as acknowledgement of debt, wherein the outstanding loan liabilities are reflected. So, my dear bankers, remember that all this correspondence should be securely placed and securely filed so that if required it can be utilized for our revival in the court. Now consider the second event. Now we have already seen the second event is part payment by either the client or his agent. Herein, the amount may be deposited by a pay-in slip as cash deposit or through pay-in slip transfer from another account, or again by depositing a check in the clearing. Even a letter and an instrument will do. That is, it is not necessary that it should be a pay-in slip. A letter duly signed by the borrower or his agent will be sufficient. Friends, not only this, the court has accepted that a check deposited by the debtor to pay his dues is an acknowledgement of debt, even, what I'm saying, listen, even though the check is dishonored. Not only that, we are always obtaining a standing instruction from our borrower to transfer, say, monthly, quarterly, etc., certain amount from one account to another account. Such an instruction, standing instruction from the borrower, which is carried out by the banker, is also treated as a deposit by the borrower only. Now we will be discussing the third method. Before that, here an example is given. Say a demand promissory note is there. It was executed on 6/8/2017 and thus valid up to 3 years, that is 6/8/2020. Say a cash deposit is made or an acknowledgement of date is obtained on 15/6/20. That is, this was obtained, acknowledgement was obtained, or cash was deposited in the account when the limitation was running. In such a case, the limitation period will get extended further by 3 years, that is up to 13/6/23. In fact, my friends, in respect of running accounts like cash credit and overdraft, the last credit entry, that is limitation, will begin from the last credit entry. In respect of term loans also, it will begin from the 3 years, or it will begin from the tick, the clock of limitation will begin from the last credit entry if nothing is there. Now, there is another method also wherein we will be executing a fresh set of documents when limitation period is ongoing. So during the limitation period, a fresh set is executed. Then that particular set, because of this action also, the limitation gets extended. Particularly whenever there are major changes, say change in the credit facilities, means amount is changed, interest is interest is totally varied, that is rate is varied, and any other major items like that happens in the sanction, or we also should execute, or we should execute the fresh set of documents when there is a change in constitution of the borrower, retirement or resignation or death of a partner, etc. So such events are there. Obtain fresh set of documents and the new limitation period will start ticking from the execution of the new documents. Now, remember that so far as limited company accounts are concerned, do not obtain fresh set of documents because there will be certain problems in respect of the date of filing charge, and therefore it should be avoided. This system should be avoided. Instead of that, it is far better to either obtain an acknowledgement of date or depositing the cash as discussed above. Friends, we have seen that limitation period get extended if a cash deposit is made or an acknowledgement is obtained, or in some cases the fresh set of documents is executed within the time period. However, after extinguishing of the time period, the document gets the time bar, and in such cases the revival of limitation is possible. But for that purpose, we will have to take the help, or we have to rely on section 25(3), section 25(3) of the Contract Act. This is an exception to the proviso of section 18 and 19 of Limitation Act, and hence a time bar date. The Contract Act says if there is a time bar date, a valid consideration, this particularly the time bar date is a valid consideration for a fresh promise to pay. When the limitation period is over, the acknowledgement of date expressly or impliedly infers the promise to pay, and the same can be invoked after the period of limitation. While invoking section 25(3), there should be a liberal interpretation of this particular section by reading it with section 2b and section 9 of Contract Act. So what is the procedure? The procedure is very simple. You have to obtain, that is, it is advisable for a banker to obtain a DP note for the outstanding amount, and the amount should be inclusive of the interest up to date as far as possible. Secondly, along with this, obtain an agreement from the borrowers and guarantors admitting, confirming, and acknowledging the outstanding balance and securities. This will revive the time barred dates. For this purpose, I have given in this PPTs only certain formats which may be utilized, or if you are having already the formats, you can utilize those formats. In short, a time bar for a time bar date, if a new consideration, that is a fresh promise, is obtained to pay the amount, then this fresh promise will be reviving a time bar date. This is the format for debit balance confirmation or acknowledgement of date, and this is for the purpose of section 18 of the Limitation Act 1963. This will have to be properly stamped, and the stamp duty will be as per the relevant state where this is executed. This is the format of agreement to be obtained from the borrower, admitting, confirming, and acknowledging the outstanding balance and the securities to revive the time bar date. This is in consonance with Section 25(3) of Contract Act, which says that a time bar date is a valid consideration for a fresh promise to pay. It contains schedules wherein details of loan and securities is given. It is to be stamped as a general agreement. A similar agreement is to be obtained, of which specimen is given for your reference. This is the schedule which I referred earlier, and this is about the schedule of securities and the schedule of documents which we had executed and which are expired. This is the format of agreement to be obtained from the guarantors. It has to be stamped as general agreement. Thus, Annex A and B and a DP note for the outstanding amount is a full set of documents which are to be obtained when the original set of documents are time barred. Through these documents, the borrower and guarantor are giving fresh promise and hence will be valid for filing suit or for action under Surface Act. If your bank has advised a different format, then please execute those documents in that format. Thus, in short, a fresh promise is to be taken from our borrowers and the guarantors so that legal action can be taken against them. Now let us discuss a case wherein our original documents, they have time barred. Similarly, there are no credits or deposits in the account, as well as we have not obtained the acknowledgement of date before the limitation has ended. That is, our documents are now time barred. In respect of such cases, there is a special enactment under the Section 3 of Limitation Act. It says that plea of limitation is the duty of the court. Means if a case is there based on the documents which are expired, that is, the documents have passed the limitation stage, in such cases, the court itself, ab initio, they should reject this particularly the case. Court cannot take cognizance of any suit, appeal, or application filed beyond the limitation period and should dismiss such suits. The section is very clear about this, and therefore we will be losing our remedy. That is, we cannot have a remedy of recovery of debt by filing a suit. However, remember that it's a very pure situation. Our remedy extinguishes, but whereas the right of recovery remains intact with the creditor. The limitation period is applicable for legal action to be taken in the course, whereas in respect of the right of set-off and right of appropriation, there is no legal action. It means a creditor can exercise his right of set-off and right of appropriation himself, although he cannot go to the court of law for the remedy. Now let us understand what is this right of set-off and right of appropriation in short. Right of set-off is the right to combine two or more accounts for final settlement of accounts. It is a statutory right, but it is necessary that one such account should have a debit balance and the other should have a credit balance. Different branches are treated as one unit, one bank. That is, a deposit account and a loan account may be at different branches, still this right is available. Then the condition of eligibility of set-off is that the credit balance in one account to the debit balance in another account should be in the same right and the same capacity. Then only this is possible. Otherwise not. Means a deposit account, if it's a partnership account, and a loan account is a partnership account of the same partners, then the appropriation is possible. Both the loan amount and the deposit account should be due for payment. That is, already our loan has become overdue now, and therefore we have to utilize right of appropriation. Similarly, if there is a deposit in the same right, but the deposit has not matured, we cannot appropriate. When the deposit will mature, then this appropriation is possible. The right of appropriation means application of a particular amount to a particular date. Creditor, that is a banker, can exercise this right only when there is no specific instructions where the amount is to be applied. So if there is no instruction from our borrower, defaulter borrower in a way, then amount can be applied by us. Thus, if an amount is received by us, say in a SB account or a current account, say we have received an RTG or an EFT in his account, well, in such circumstances, deposit, such type of deposit, we can appropriate towards his date, which has already become the time barred. This is the wonderful action which is available or right available for in the hands of the creditor. Then lastly, the loan amount should be due and deposit amount has matured. This is to be taken into consideration. Remember this thing, and we have to notify what we are doing to our client. This is also a important aspect. So remedy is not there, but friends, if some amount comes into the hands of the banker, well, we can apply that amount to his date, which is time barred. Now let us see some of the cases, or we can say this is an addendum to whatever we have discussed. Joint date, it is about the joint date. As per Limitation Act section 20, if acknowledgement is executed by one borrower, it will extend limitation against him only. So in a joint account or a joint debt, if only one person signs the acknowledgement, this limitation will extend in respect of him only. The Limitation Act is applicable in case of agriculture recovery acts. That is, there are different agriculture recovery acts passed by the state government. There also the Limitation Act applies. While filing suit in cooperative courts by primary urban cooperative banks, the Limitation Act is not applicable. Why? The simple thing is that the society members, that is, they are only the borrowers in respect of such a bank, and therefore this particularly Limitation Act do not apply to them. Now, so far as limitation period for taking criminal action is there is a defined time period also. First, under CPC, under section 468, it says offenses which are punishable with fine only, then this limitation period is 6 months. Then in respect of imprisonment of up to 1 year, the limitation period is 1 year. In respect of imprisonment of more than 1 year and up to 3 years, limitation period is 3 years. The counting commences from the earliest, that is while counting this limitation period, from which date it should be counted. It says that on the date of offense or the knowledge of the offense to the police or to that particular person, or identity of the offender is known. From that date it will start. In fact, it is always says that in respect of limitation, in respect of criminal action, there is no time barred thing as far as possible, except the few exceptions which I have already given. For taking action under Surface Act, when we go for action under Surface Act, that is serving notice and then taking possession, etc., etc., remember that the documents should comply with the Limitation Act. That is, if you have to take a surface action, get the documents properly within limitation period. Then, so far as the action for recovery of by filing a suit, civil suit or DRT or transferred cases do not save limitation for taking action under Surface Act. So if you have gone to the civil court and then you are executing the document and then you are taking action against Surface Act, then whatever period has elapsed in the civil court, that will not be condoned so far as limitation is concerned. Then stamp duty and acknowledgement of date. In respect of acknowledgement of date, which is signed by or on behalf of a debtor, in order to supply an evidence of such date in any book excluding passbook on a separate piece of paper, when such a book or piece of paper is left in the hands of the creditor's possession, and the amount or value of such date, that is when the loan is above rupees 5,000, it will attract stamp duty from rupees 1 to rupees 100 as defined in the slabs of the relative state government. If such acknowledgement contains any promise to pay the debt or any stipulation to pay interest or to deliver any goods or other property, it will attract stamp duty as an agreement as per State Stamp Act. Only debit balance confirmation which we obtain, that is, it is in the form of receipt of money and it carries a stamp duty, that is a revenue stamp of 1 rupee to be applied and to be signed by the borrower. So we have seen almost all types of cases which come across while we are banking, particularly while we are tackling the documents in respect of loans and taking action for recovery or execution of decree, etc. Friends, let us recapitulate what we have learned. Limitation Act spells out the specific time limit up to which a suit can be filed in a court of law to enforce rights. The time limit when the documents or actions are time barred are specified in the Act. In respect of loan agreements, the limitation can be extended by deposit of money by the borrower or his agent, or by acknowledging the liabilities before the expiry of the limitation period. The revival of time barred debt is possible only by executing documents containing a fresh promise to pay. Beyond the limitation period, the legal remedy comes to an end. However, the right to recover the debt persists with the creditors. At this juncture, I am concluding my hour-long session on Law of Limitation 1963. You must have enjoyed the session. In case of any query, please phone me or write to me. I assure you that I will reply within 48 hours. Thanking you. My best wishes. Bye bye.